Hey everybody, MTGers are here with another EDH Commander overview. This one, I'm gonna have a bit of announcements with this one. I got stuff to tell you fuckers. So, not too long ago, just coming up on a month now when I recorded this. So this is the 7th of December. So yeah, just about a month ago, Commander 2015 came out. And it has some cool stuff in it. So I thought for a long time, well, first of all, it was almost impossible for me to find any of the commanders because on MTGO, they didn't release the commander decks as purchasable products. All the new cards were available in the Legendary Cube that they put out on Magic Online, so they had a prize pack. So if you won the Legendary Cube, you obviously didn't get to keep the cards you drafted like a normal draft, but you'd win prize packs. And so all the Ezuri, stuff like that, if it'll load, like Ezuri, were in those prize packs. So I didn't know which one I wanted to do, and honestly, I could probably do a video for one of each of the new color combination commanders. I think all of them have at least something going on that makes me want to build them. And so in the end, like originally I really wanted to do Marin because I really like green-black, and I haven't been able to really put together a list that I'm happy with for green-black yet. But Marin of Clan Nel Toth was like $15 when like the copies were trickling into MTGO traders, which fuck that. So we went with the next best thing. So I'm doing Ezuri Claw of Progress. I am also concurrently at the same time going to be doing Arjun the Shifting Flame. So look for that deck tag to come out probably the day after this one comes out. So instead of doing one of these guys at a time, we're going to alternate between Ezuri and Arjun games. So I'm gonna go over Ezuri, and then you know how this works, and then we'll go over Arjun and do that thing because I really want to play with these guys. They're very fun. This Ezuri deck has probably given me my lowest converted mana cost, average converted mana cost of any EDH deck I've ever made. So let's go over Ezuri. So poor Ezuri, the Claw of Progress. I don't know if you guys keep up with the lore, but what was once Mirrodin is now fucked like 6 ways to Sunday, and Ezuri, who was an elf renegade leader, has now fallen, presumably to Jin Gitaxias. So Ezuri Claw of Progress is a legendary elf warrior, a 3/3 for 4, 2, a green and a blue. Whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. So, experience counters are the newest bit of design space that Wizards is exploring. Originally the only counters that could be put on a player were negative, and those were the infect counters from Scar's block. But experience counters are placed directly on a player. So as of right now and for the foreseeable future, there will be no ways to remove experience counters from players. So that's an inherent advantage of commanders with experience counters, because they're not put onto the creature itself. So you can't just Doomblade Ezuri to get rid of like 12 experience counters. I have them. I, the player, have those experience counters. So it makes it a lot easier to, if this bites removal, you can just kind of get it back and just get the ball rolling again. So if you can see from his ability, this deck focuses on guys with power 2 or less, and just ways we can, this deck was like an old Varel of the Hulklade shell that I've modified for my nefarious purposes. So we want to get a pretty fast start, get Ezuri down as fast as possible, and then just start vomiting dudes onto the field. Do we have any lands that do anything interesting? Dryad Arbor is a land that counts towards experience, so if you cast him, you get an experience counter. Or if you put Dryad Arbor into play, you don't cast lands. If you put Dryad Arbor into play, then you will get an experience counter. Anything else interesting land-wise? Guy's Cradle. We usually end up with enough creatures to make this worth it. I apologize in advance. I don't have lands I want. I've got these promo Time Spiral, promo Ravnica ones that I use for different monocolored decks. I use these for my Seaton deck, and I use these for my Azami deck. But I was gonna get some Scars block lands, but then I sort of started drinking last night and forgot. So instead of just taking the 10 seconds and doing that, I'm just going to leave these here. At least they're all the same. They just don't have really thematic relevance. I guess, yeah. I'm sorry. May have fucking culpa. Colony Garden is a land, makes a dude that also gives you an experience counter, which is nice. Oren Reef, the Vastwood. Have a lot of green creatures that would appreciate 1/1 counters on them. I think that's all for interesting lands. Alright, Mana Crypt Soul Ring. I played some games. Originally this build had 0 artifacts except for 1. It had 1 artifact. Because I was I liked all the cards in it, so I cut Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, and Simic Signet. Just to see what it would be like, and the answer is fucking terrible. Nothing is more soul crushing having an opponent turn 1 Soul Ring knowing that you don't have a Soul Ring in your deck. So props on Wizards for printing this card 7 times. It needs to exist in a commander in a format where Mana Crypt, Soul Ring are legal. You need to play them. There's really unless you're playing I don't know. I can't honestly think of a deck. Maybe an Enchantress Sigarda list that uses what's that fucking enchantment from Innistrad, the white one. It means you can't activate artifacts. Stony Silence. If you have Stony Silence in your deck, then I guess I can see you not running these cards. But anywhere else, they do way too much not to use. So we're not going to talk about them. We've already talked enough about them. So we've got 1-drops, Ponder, Preordain. We've got our Mana Dorks, which all give experience counters. Birds of Paradise, Elvish Mystic, Findhorn Elves, Jiraga Tree Speaker, and Llanowar Elves. So all these guys get us closer to a quick Ezuri, and any ones we draw late game are still an extra experience counter for 1 mana, which is not bad. 2 mana, we've got Cyclonic Rift. Okay, I know a lot of people don't like this card, and I really hate it when I get blown out by Cyclonic Rift, because you can fucking tell when you're about to get Cyclonic Rifted. You can tell. You can just look at his mana. You're well, he's got 7 untapped mana with blue in it, so I guess I just can't do anything for the rest of the game. But I don't think it's ban-worthy, but it is a good card. I'd see Prophet of Krufix banned before Cyclonic Rift, honestly. And then honestly, before Prophet of Krufix or Cyclonic Rift, I'd ban Soul Ring. At least ban Mana Crypt for being restrictively expensive in paper. It's still $150 even for the Spanish one. So basically, excuse me. So Cyclonic Rift is good. Play around it. It's a card in the format. Don't get pissed when it gets cast. I will 100% of the time get pissed if this is cast on me and on camera. So, someone wants to chat with me. Delivery bot. So this is one of MTGO Trader's guys. So there's a period of time when I get home from work that their delivery is closed. If you make an order on their website, because it's like 4 in the morning for them. So I just went to one of their bots and just bought the cards I needed for this deck normally, because it wasn't many. It was like 7 cards. And so now like I have this order outstanding. Like I didn't pay for it, but I don't want to tell Robot that I'm not going to take his order. So there's that. So moving on to our first specific card, Sage of Hours is a mythic rare from Journey into Nyx, a 2-mana 1/1 human wizard with heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Sage of Hours, put a 1/1 counter on it. And then you can remove all Sage or all counters from Sage of Hours. For each 5 counters removed this way, take an extra turn after this one. So basically, what you do is you get Ezuri and you get 4 experience counters, and you cast Sage of Hours, and then you remove 5 counters, and then you take infinite turns. And it's really scummy, and if they don't have the removal for Sage of Hours, then this game's kind of over. But it's one of the few times this card's ever going to do anything, because it took a lot of work to get counters on him, like when he was in my Varel deck. So I'm glad that this deck exists for him to shine in. And I love taking extra turns. And because I'm playing this card, I don't feel as bad not running like Capture of Jingzhou or Time Walk or something like that. Time Warp, rather. Straight up counterspell. Elvis Visionary. Yeah, enters battlefield, draws a card, gets an experience counter. It's pretty cool. Gyre Sage, or Gyre Sage, is the Evolve Mana Dork, so she can get pretty ridiculous with a lot of experience counters. And, you know, is an elf who is relevant for the Priest of Titania that I'm testing out in this list. It's not an elf list, like it's not elf ball like a lot of people are making it, but it does have a lot of tiny elves. It just so happens that a lot of good small creatures are elves. So I'm trying him out. Yeah, it's a dude. Priest of Titties is a dude. Deal with it. And outside my window, hold on. I'm gonna see if I can open this up and you guys can hear this. So there was just some like fucking rousing like orchestra music going on outside my window. I think it's just like a parade or something. I don't know. Something's going on, but I wasn't invited. So yeah, Nature's Lore is just ramp. No 3 visits in this deck because this comes before that in the alphabet, and I only wanted 1. Sylvan Caryatid, Mana Dork, you know, triggers Ezuri, and then you can make it a huge hexproof defender if need be with Ezuri. Sylvan Library, just card filtering. Coiling Oracle, already a great 2-drop. Now it's even better because it triggers Ezuri, and you can make it huge. So lots of value in this Coiling Oracle. Zemet Guildmage, Elf Wizard 2/2. You can pay a Simic, and then each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, or pay a Simic, remove a 1/1 counter from a creature you control, draw a card. So, as far as like guild mages go, this one is really one that fits with both themes of this deck, and I've never cast him, and I've had him for the longest time, and he's been in every iteration of my original Prime Speaker list, so I just never use him. Like I'll always like draw 14 cards, and he'll be in that stack, and I'll just discard it. So I'm excited to play with him. All right, moving on. Chasm Skulker. This is a card designed by Mike Newman from M15. It's a 3-mana 1/1 squid horror. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on him. And when he dies, put X 1/1's blue squid tokens with Island Walk onto the battlefield, where X is the number of 1/1 counters on him. So, this card can get out of hand with Ezuri. So, it has no form of evasion by itself, but it does replace itself like 15-fold when it dies, hopefully. Either they waste early removal on Chasm Skulker, which protects our Ezuri or other creatures, or they let it sort of get out of control. And if they're playing islands, those island walking squids can get very dangerous with Ezuri experience triggers. All in all, I'm very happy that this card is good in this deck. It's pretty good in most like blue lists now. It's a pretty cool, well-designed card, but I'm glad that it synergizes so well with Ezuri. Trinket Mage. So this might not look like a Trinket Mage list, but we have Mana Crypt and Soul Ring, and I actually ran this card in this deck without either Mana Crypt or Soul Ring intentionally, because he fetches one thing. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to think about what that answer is. Alright, so one of the most expensive cards I've ever purchased on Magic Online, Hangerback Walker. So let's talk about this guy. Hangerback Walker is a 0/0 for XX artifact construct. Enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. When it dies, put a 1/1 colorless Thopter creature token with flying onto the battlefield for each 1/1 counter, and you can pay 1 to put a 1/1 counter on Hangerback Walker. So, Hangerback Walker is very similar to Chasm Skulker in that he is a guy that gets, procedurally bigger, and then when he dies, just sort of vomits out little evasive dudes. However, this guy is tutorable with Trinket Mage because his converted mana cost is 0. You can play him on turn 2 as a 1/1 and then use his ability to sort of like ratchet up 1/1 counters on him. And then you just dump 1/1 counters on him with Ezuri. Whenever he dies, all of his dudes are guaranteed evasive instead of normally evasive. I don't know if he's 11 tickets good, like the price I bought him at, but I had tickets lying around to make this deck, and Hangerback Walker seemed like a pretty cool card. And, albeit, like, if I don't like him, he's been great in all the test games I've played, so I don't think I'm going to sell him, but it really is, like, the only deck he'll go in unless they make some new Thopter support, in which case I'll be glad to have it. But this card will be a ticket when Origins rotates out. I think, Abzan Aggro plays this card? I don't know. I don't watch Standard anymore. The last time I watched Standard, Jeskai Ascendancy combo deck was a thing. Alright. Dissipate and Dissolve are better cancels. The Scry and Exile, they're nice. Another new card from Commander 15, Arachnogenesis, Spider Fog. It's a 3-mana instant, put X 1/2 green spider tokens with reach onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. So this card is super cool, and if you get attacked by 1,000,000 dudes, I can Arachnogenesis, get 1,000,000 dudes, get 1,000,000 experience counters, fog the board, and then probably just dump 12 counters or something on who cares what, and like a spider, and then just hit your face. So haven't gotten to cast this card yet, but I feel like when I do, if it's worth it, it's gonna be the sweetest thing in the universe, man. Like, I'm so pumped to use this card. More love for spiders, Wizards. Where's my legendary green-black spider? Alright, Awakening Zone. Beginning of your upkeep, put a 0/1 into play. Gives you mana, gives you experience counters. It's pretty good. Fertilid. Another deck that interacts well with Fertilid. Elemental 0/0 for 3 from Morningtide. Yeah, it's Morningtide. Enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters. And you can pay 1 and a green, remove a 1/1 counter, and target player Rampant Growths. So this is a way to, you can just use him as like double removal, like he's a very slow explosive vegetation. But he also, when he comes into play, he triggers Ezuri, and also Ezuri can just refill his 1/1 counter, so you can keep using his ability, which really like makes this the deck to use him in. Like Varel was the only other ever deck I played it in, but imagine you can run him in like a, you probably run him in like a Horde of Notions EDH deck, but fuck that. Imperious Perfect is the Elf Lord of choice for this deck, mostly because when it comes into play, triggers Ezuri, and then you can pay a green and tap her and put a 1/1 Elf Warrior token into play, which will also trigger Ezuri, and then you can put the counters on the elves, swing out. It does good things. I can see why the Elf Ball is good, the version for this, because it's just regular elves except you get blue, so sounds good. Reclamation Sage, you know, you just need it. Disenchant on a dude is good. Champion of Lamholt. So, is a 1/1 for 3 human warrior from Absent Restored. Creatures with power less than Champion of Lamholt's power can't block creatures you control, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 1/1 counter on her. So, what this means is, if you need to Alpha Strike, this card is one of the cards that's going to get you there. So, like anytime you get dudes, she gets bigger, and then you can dump all your experience counters on her, so your team is basically unblockable. She's just a very cool card. I am kind of surprised that she's not like red-green or green-white, or even all three. Like this could have been a cool commander idea, like Stella, Champion of Lamholt, could have been like a Naya colored, yeah, so like a red white green 1/1 has the same text. Would have been a cool deck to build around. But you know, this is what we got. Cold-Eyed Selkie is a 1/1 for 3 with hybrid mana, Island Walk, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw that many cards. Another phenomenal target to dump counters on with Ezuri because it's evasive, which means you're going to get through some fat damage, and then it's going to draw you more cards to get more experience counters. Bred for the Hunt. So raise your hand if you don't know what this card does, because you hated Dragon's Maze Limited and never played it. So this card is a 3-mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 on it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Very cool. That thing is fucking up. Is that Dak Faden? Yeah, it's fucking up Dak Faden, I guess. But it's like Coastal Piracy or Edric, and it's thematically relevant, and I had a foil lying around, so we threw it in the deck. Speaking of Edric, Spymaster of Trest, legendary elf rogue. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of my opponents, its controller may draw a card. One of the preeminent 1v1 commanders. Very powerful deck, very good card. Just drawing that many cards with your little evasive dudes is pretty backbreaking. And now a much more interesting card is Cassetto, Orochi Archmage, the other new legendary creature from the Commander 15 Swell the Host deck. Is a 2/2 for 3 Snake Wizard, and you can pay Simic. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If that creature is a snake, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So this is here as a test. This card might come out, but it's there so you can make your huge dudes evasive. I think Cassetto is the only snake in the deck, so the +2/+2 is not very relevant. But it would be a cool snake general, because there are lots of cool snakes, and you can't run Mystic Snake in like a Seshiro the Anointed EDH. Unfortunately, it does look like I have like really shitty art, and I actually don't like the art on that. It's unfortunate. Alright, well, we gotta keep trucking through this, Orzo. Lore Scale Coddle is a 2/2 for 3 We have a lot of 2/2s for 3s. 3 mana is sort of our theme in this deck. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on Lord Scare Coddle. Another card that can come out, but a card I personally really like, just as like a pet card. So it's in there. I enjoy it. If this card never ends up doing anything, you can go fuck yourselves and unsubscribe because this card's cool. Plaxcaster Frogling is a 0/0 for 3 frog mutant with Graft 3. So Graft is a really annoying mechanic on Moto until I just figured out they fixed it. Now you can auto yield. You can always no to your opponent's creatures. But so it enters the battlefield with 3 1/1 counters on it. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may move a 1/1 counter from this creature onto it. So this basically means that creature, and you can pay 2. Target creature with a 1/1 counter on it has Shroud until end of turn. So when it comes into play, usually you'll go turn 2 or 3 Frogling, turn 3 or 4 Ezuri, and then the next turn, assuming they both survive, you graft a 1/1 counter onto Ezuri, and then you can protect Ezuri from spot removal. So also you can stop Voltron shenanigans by giving them a 1/1 counter, and then they can't do anything because you just give the guy Shroud all the time. And then Varel, the old commander, legendary human merfolk. Pay Simic and tap it for each counter on target artifact, creature, or land to put another one of those counters on that permanent. So you double the counters on an artifact, creature, or land. And this deck, because you can't target players with him, only Proliferate can do that. And we don't have a lot of other shenanigans going on with counters in this deck. Excuse me. So he's another card that could come out of this deck. We'll see. We will see. Alright, big stuff. Glenalindra seems really good if you can keep getting back 1/1 counters. So it comes back with Persist. Ezuri triggers. We'll give it, or it'll come back with Persist, give another experience counter, and then at the beginning of combat you'll give another experience. You'll put a 1/1 counter on Archmage. So I can see how that would be appealing. Viral Drake is a cool card. New Phyrexian Drake, 1/4 flyer for 4 with Infect, and you can pay for it and Proliferate. So probably not going to get a lot of Infect wins, though this can surprise win out of nowhere. It triggers Ezuri, and you can put a bunch of counters from it onto it, like kind of like scare them into it. Like you can. All right, now I'm thinking about it. Varel, you're coming out. Lightning. I'm gonna put Lightning Greaves in here. Come on. All right, Lightning Greaves. So Lightning Greaves is good because you can always just stick it on Ezuri, who can't target himself with his ability. Put your counters on a dude, then put the Greaves back on. Maybe Swiftfoot Boots would be better, actually, so I just don't have to fuck around with it. But the 1 to equip really is just not as good as the 2 to equip. Maybe I'll put both in. That seems greedy. I don't know. We'll test out Lightning Greaves and see how I like it. You guys know what Lightning Greaves does. Oh, excuse me. Shroud and Haste is important. So Wonder is another card that could come out that I'm testing out here. It's a 4 mana 2/2 flyer, and if it's in your graveyard and you control an island, creatures you control have flying. So I think it's a neat card. It's another way to give your guys evasiveness, but I don't know, it might be on the chopping block. Rite of Replication is just insane on so many cards in this deck. You guys know what it does. 9 mana. It's another 9 mana win the game spell, basically. Copy really any creature in this deck, and you're going to get value with Ezuri. You're going to get a lot. Venser is basically a counter spell that triggers Ezuri. Cryptic Command, because Cryptic Command is good. Oracle of Moldiah triggers Ezuri and triggers Ezuri and get you some incremental ramp. That's pretty cool. Allurin. Alright, this is a cool card. originally from Tempest Block. I picked up the Tempest Remastered art because I think the new border suits it pretty neatly. It's a 4-mana enchantment. Any player may play creature cards with a converted mana cost 3 or less without paying their mana cost as though they had flash. So basically, this means that if you have this out, you can just sort of dump your hand, because most of our dudes are below 3 mana. Now, it is important to note that that card does work for both players, so both players can be affected by Alurin. And if your commander costs 3 or less, nowhere does it say from your hand. So, if Alurin is out, and their commander costs 3 or less, it will only ever cost commander tax, because this doesn't get around commander tax, but it does remove the cost. So, like, let's say you're playing Cassetto, and I'm playing Ezuri, and I cast Alurin. You can cast Cassetto for free, and let's say you block my Oracle of Moldiah that's big, and Cassetto dies, goes to the command zone. You can cast it again with flash by only paying 2 mana. So it is something to watch out for. One of those old cards with, downsides that could affect everybody. Master of the Wild Hunt, quickly and swiftly becoming my favorite green card of all time. I think this card is so well designed. Basically, at the beginning of your upkeep, you get a dude that triggers Ezuri and then uses it as removal. You just fling your wolves at them. You put a bunch of counters on the wolf so it can kill big things. It's beautiful. I love this card. Cool art. Thanks, M10. We got Fathom Mage, which is just quickly gets disgusting with Ezuri. You dump like 4 counters on it, and you draw 4 cards, and do that every turn. It's just a thing of beauty. A Mystic Snake is a counterspell that triggers Ezuri. Alright, Mole Drifter. Draws 2, triggers Ezuri, even if you cast it for Evoke, which is cool. Inexorable Tide, enchantment from Scars of Mirrodin. Whenever you cast a spell, Proliferate. A little expensive for what it does, but it comes down the turn after Ezuri, and it can work. I might cut this card. The only reason the card is in here really is because it puts more experience counters on me, even if I don't have Ezuri out. So if I can get 1 experience counter and they can just deal with Ezuri forever, then Inexorable Tide will hopefully take me to the promised land by just adding another experience counter to me. Alright, Mystic Confluence. Another really hyped up card from Commander 15. Instant, 5 mana, 3 and 2 blue. Choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. You can counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. Return target creature to its owner's hand or draw a card. So, at worst, this card is a soft, quote-unquote, counterspell. It's like, at worst, it's worse than cancel. But usually, if you want to make someone pay 9 for their spell, it's a spell worth countering, they probably can't pay 9. Now, if you're playing it's like super green, green-white ramp decks, then, well, maybe you're shit out of luck. But in that case, you can just bounce their things back to their hands. Excuse me. God, I need to take a nap. So, like, really easy, what you can do is make it a little better than Dismiss. So for 1 mana, you can Mana Leak and unsummon and draw a card, which seems pretty good. Like, you can even just cast this as, like, there's no reason to ever run Jace's Ingenuity in EDH again, because it's just strictly worse than this. Like, you draw 3 cards for 5 mana at instant speed. Mystic Confluence does that. So, sorry, Jace's Ingenuity, you've been outclassed. Doubling Season for obvious reasons. Small tokens making, but we just want to put huge counters on things. Acidic Slime, 2 mana, basically Vindicate. Or what's the one that does this? It's not Bramble Crush. I don't know. But destroys target land, artifact, or enchantment. And then triggers Ezuri, Death Touch. It's a cool card. All right, so Deranged Hermit is my favorite follow-up play to Ezuri. So you go, I don't know, let's say Champion of, let's go for the fucking Gusto. We're going to say Coiling Oracle. We're going to say, okay, turn 1, Jiraga Tree Speaker into Champion of Lamholt into Ezuri into Deranged Hermit. So Deranged Hermit, when it enters the battlefield, you put 4 1/1 green squirrel tokens into play. Squirrels get +1/+1. It has Echo of its mana cost. So when this comes into play, you get an experience counter from Ezuri, and then 4 elves come into play, and you get 4 more experience counters, and now you have 5 unremovable experience counters. So that's nifty. I very rarely have ever seen anyone pay the Echo cost on this card. Maybe if you need the damage and like having the squirrels get +1/+1 is worth it, then you can do it. But I've just never been in a situation where I was in any danger. Next up, we've got Whisperwood Elemental, Mythic from Favorite Forge. At 4/4 for 5 Elemental at the beginning of your end step. Manifest the top card of your library. Sacrifice it whenever a face-up non-token creature. Alright, so I'll read this correctly. I'll format it right. Sacrifice Whisperwood Elemental until end of turn. Face-up non-token creatures you control gain. When this creature dies, manifest the top card of your library. So this is just a good way to get value out of combat, to get value out of Wrath. And assuming Ezuri can stick around, find a way to stick around, excuse me, then it gets very good. I don't know where I am. Whisperwood. Prophet of Crucifix. I'm not even going to talk about this card. This card's insane in this deck. Alright, let's move on to some more cards. We don't have much more, guys. I need to go to bed. It's only like 10:30 in the morning, so time for bed. Time for sleepy time for Orzo. Alright, so Fable of Wolf and Owl is a card I've really always wanted to play with. An enchantment from Eventide, I think. Whenever you cast a green spell, you put a 2/2 wolf into play. Whenever you cast a blue spell, you may put a 1/1 bird into play. So, basically, if you have this in Ezuri, whenever you cast a spell, you get 1 or 2 experience counters. And then just sort of gets you incremental board presence by casting regular spells. It's a cool card. I like it. Avenger of Zendikar. So if you can see, there is no Creator Hoof Behemoth in this deck, and there probably should be. But I didn't want to make it too similar to Tolsimir and Prime Speaker. So Avenger makes the cut on the sheer notion that he gives a shit ton of experience counters to Ezuri, and does a bunch with like Gaia's Cradle and stuff like that. For similar vein, we have Hornet Queen, really good for gumming up the board defensively, and you can make your insect tokens huge with Ezuri because this is a 7 mana creature that triggers Ezuri, so you're going to get 5 experience counters just like with a Deranged Hermit if you cast this guy afterwards. It's just instant value. Verdant Force is a pet card that I really like. One of the first cards I ever saw when I was looking at Magic. It's a 8 mana 7/7 elemental. Beginning of your each upkeep, put a 1/1 sapperling into play. So basically this means this has on every player's upkeep you get an experience counter with Ezuri out, and if not, you just have board presence. So very cool card. We talked about Hangerback Walker and how cool it is in this deck. And then we have Greenstone Zenith to grab stuff. Usually like a Prophet of Crucifix, to Deranged Hermit, stuff like that, Fathom Mage. We have a lot of sweet targets for this, actually. The only thing it can't get, though, is the card that wins us the game immediately. It can't get Sage of Hours. So maybe I should run a Worldly Tutor in here to make it happen. But that seems like it defeats the purpose of the format. Thanks, Sheldon. So this is the deck. Tell me what you guys think about it. I will see you guys in the Arjun deck review.